Welcome back to another deep dive.
Good to be here.
So our mission today, it's pretty straightforward, but really important, I think. We've got this collection of recent articles, all from CoinMarketCap, dated June 12th, 2025.
Right.
And we need to unpack the key insights, what's really going on in the crypto market based on these specific sources.
Yeah, and they cover a lot. You've got the big picture market movements, but also some really specific project updates, key indicators. It's a mix.
It really is. Some sources are definitely highlighting excitement around certain projects.
Yeah.
Others are talking about market dips, broader trends.
So our goal is just to help you cut through that noise, right?
Yeah.
Figure out what actually matters from this specific batch of news.
Exactly. Okay, let's dive in. Where do we start?
Well, the most immediate thing jumping out from one source is the overall market picture for today, June 12th, and it's a downturn, a broad one.
Okay, a downturn. Do we have specifics? Numbers?
We do. Total market cap, according to the source, fell 1.68%, landed at $3.39 trillion.
1.68.
Okay.
And volume?
Daily trading volume also took a hit, down 5.27% to $133.81 billion.
Oof. Okay, so that's definitely noticeable. More than just a little wobble.
Yeah. And what's really interesting, or maybe revealing, is the reason the source gives for this dip.
Oh. What are they pointing to?
Slides in traditional markets. Specifically mentions the DJT, S&P 500, and NASDAQ. Says that triggered panic selling in crypto.
Wow, okay, so a direct link being drawn there and really makes you think just how connected is crypto to traditional markets right now? Or at least how much perceived connection is driving fear?
Exactly. That correlation question is always there, but seeing it stated so bluntly as the trigger, it's noteworthy.
Yeah, definitely. But okay, so that's the overall dip story linked to TradFi jitters. But looking through the other sources here, it seems like there's some pretty different signals too, especially around Bitcoin itself.
Yes, absolutely. Despite the red market today, there's another piece highlighting recent Glassnode data. On-chain stuff.
Ah, Glassnode. Always interesting. What are they seeing?
Well, the source says their analysis points to key signals for a potential explosive surge in Bitcoin price down the line.
Explosive. Even with the market down today.
That's what makes it fascinating, right? These on-chain analytics firms, they're looking under the hood, not just at price, but at, holder behavior, wallet movements, supply dynamics. Things that might predict future moves, even if the current sentiment is bearish.
It's like trying to see the pressure building up before the eruption.
Yeah.
Looking past the surface noise.
Precisely. And speaking of potential future drivers, there's another angle in these sources related to Bitcoin adoption.
Okay.
It mentions a Bitwise CIO, Matt Hugin. In an interview from June 10th, he apparently stated that corporate interest in Bitcoin is, well, really growing.
Corporate interest.
Yeah.
Like companies putting Bitcoin on their balance sheets, and we're talking about that for a while.
Right, but Hugin's point, according to the source, is that it's accelerating because traditional cash management strategies are just losing their effectiveness.
So negative real yields, inflation concerns. Companies are maybe starting to see Bitcoin differently. Not just speculation, but as a treasury asset.
That seems to be the argument presented. And if that corporate adoption wave is only just beginning, as this source implies Hugin suggests, well, that's potentially a huge long-term demand driver for Bitcoin.
Okay, interesting. So we've got this weird mix, right? A market dip today, blamed on traditional finance panic. But underneath, potential bullish signals from on-chain data and this growing corporate interest narrative for Bitcoin.
Quite the contrast.
Definitely. Now, shifting gears a bit, because these sources aren't just about Bitcoin. There's a lot of talk about specific altcoins, too.
Oh, yeah. The main CoinMarketCap piece we're looking at, its headline flags a Toncoin price surge and a Cardano DeFi push. Says those are sparking excitement.
Toncoin and Cardano. Okay. And then there's quite a bit about BlockDAG in here, too. Seems to be getting a strong push in the narrative.
Very strong. One guest post literally positions BlockDAG's X1 app as, quote, dominating the bull run narrative. Pretty bold statement.
Dominating. Okay. Do they back that up with anything?
Well, another source gives some specifics. It says BlockDAG has raised $298 million.
Whoa, okay. That's That's a serious number.
Right. And it notes the current reported price, 0.0017, and mentions this ROI figure of 2,678%.
An ROI of over 2,600%.
Okay.
How do they frame that?
It's interesting. The source puts it in context by mentioning other projects like Stellar, XLM Price Outlook, and Avalanche AVX price action also being watched. But then it really emphasizes BlockDAG's record-breaking buyer battle.
Buyer battles. Sounds like a marketing term.
Almost certainly, but the source includes it, likely reflecting the project's own promotion to highlight intense investor interest, I guess. The whole narrative seems built around this X1 app making things easy, tying into bull run excitement.
Got it. So a big fundraise, specific price points mentioned, and this buyer battles angle trying to capture that momentum narrative. It definitely paints a picture of project-specific buzz.
Exactly, and it's not the only one. There's also an update on Hello Labs in the source collection.
Hello Labs, what's happening there?
They apparently unveiled some major token economy upgrades, introducing something called a burn and earn model for their Hello Club.
Burn and earn. Trying to manage supply, I assume?
Seems like it. The source mentions creating a deflationary structure for the Hello token, burning tokens to reduce supply while users can earn them somehow. Standard goals, manage supply, potentially boost value.
Makes sense. Anything else on Hello?
Yeah. They also added a multi-chain bridge, aiming for better token utility, easier access across different chains. These kinds of tokenomics updates and utility improvements are often what drive movement in specific altcoins.
Right, those project-level catalysts. So, okay, we're seeing this activity, Toncoin surging, Cardano DeFi, BlockDAG's big raise in narrative, Hello Labs upgrading. It naturally leads to that question, doesn't it?
Perennial question.
Yeah. Is altcoin season 2025,
Yeah.
like right around the corner? The sources seem to be hinting at it, or at least asking.
They are, and they remind us how people track this. The altcoin season index, for instance.
Right, the one that looks at how many alts are outperforming Bitcoin over, 90 days?
Exactly. If a big chunk of altcoins are beating Bitcoin over that period, it suggests that shift, market focus moving away from just Bitcoin towards the broader alt market.
Okay, so this brings up a really important point for you, the listener, to think about. When you see these specific movements highlighted, Toncoin, Cardano, BlockDAG with its momentum, Hello Labs upgrades, what does that tell you right now about the potential dynamics between alts and Bitcoin, especially thinking about that index?
It really does paint a complex picture, doesn't it? Layers upon layers.
It absolutely does. So let's try and pull it all together from this batch of sources. What do we got? We've got a market seeing a short-term dip today.
Yep. Linked explicitly by one source to jitters in traditional markets, fear spilling over.
Right. But at the same time, we've got these potentially significant bullish undercurrents for Bitcoin, like the Glassnode data hinting at future surges.
And that growing narrative around corporate interest, maybe seeing Bitcoin as a treasury hedge.
Exactly. And then you layer on top all this vibrant activity and, frankly, hype in the altcoin space. Specific mentions for Toncoin, Cardano's DeFi work, BlockDAG's huge raise, and very prominent narrative.
And the tokenomics upgrades from projects like Hello Labs trying to build value.
Yeah. This contrast, this juxtaposition between the short-term, maybe macro-driven dip, and these potential long-term drivers or very specific project strengths. That's what makes reading these sources together so interesting today.
Absolutely, and understanding these different layers is key, isn't it? You've got the overall market mood, partly driven by outside forces. You've got the deeper signals for the big player, Bitcoin, and then the individual stories driving specific altcoins. Staying informed without getting totally overwhelmed by the sheer volume and often conflicting signals is the challenge.
Couldn't agree more. And, here's where it gets really interesting, I think. This leaves you with a thought to really chew on.
Okay.
When you look at these sources side by side, right, you read about a market dip blamed on the S&P 500 dropping. And then in the next article, maybe even the same one, you read about massive fundraising for a specific project or fundamental upgrades or potential long-term Bitcoin adoption trends. How much weight should you give that immediate short-term dip? How much should it actually influence your view on those deeper, maybe longer-term trends or the specific fundamentals of a project highlighted in the exact same news cycle?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Balancing that macro noise against the micro developments.
It really is. It's about figuring out what signals matter most to your time frame and strategy amidst all the daily chatter. A fascinating puzzle.